This is super funny to have. Let's have a Canadian guest on for 4th of July weekend. How's that going to work
I
out?
believe
Is
so,
that you
yes.
laughing, Scott? Am I hearing you? I'm here. I'm hearing you, but I'm not
I
seeing
am
you.
not
I don't
sure.
know what's up with
I
that.
see both of us and hear both of us, so.
Anyway, perfect. Let's just go. Let's just go with that. Scott, what's your last? There
It's
you are. What's
Williams.
your last name again?
Yeah, that's right.
Scott Williams. That's right. Okay. You never really use that very often on your social media
From time
stuff,
to
I
time,
guess.
like I often post every week a comic strip that I draw, and I have the byline of that is my
Mm-hmm.
real name, but most of the other stuff it's all my
Mm-hmm.
handles, which are pretty much the same.
What's your comic strip? Like, where do you find it? Because
So
this is the
you
first I'm hearing
can
about it.
find it on. What I do is I draw the comic strip and then I animate it. It's not very fast. Like, yeah, I don't animate it like a
Really?
cartoon. It's just as if you were reading the comic yourself, but it's just you don't have to move your eyes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a I guess you could say it's like a GIF, a very slow moving GIF. Um, so you can
Okay.
find it on.
Is
No,
it
there's no
audio?
audio.
Is there
It'd be
audio
just like
though?
you were reading it out of the paper or on a screen,
Okay.
except instead of four panels or how many ever to tell the story, it's just one,
Mm-hmm.
and it animates. So uh,
Okay. And what do the topics range from on this comic? Is it a single character or is
it's
it
two
not? Is it
characters,
like Far Side
a
ish?
turtle and a chicken, and it's basically
Okay.
whatever I'm feeling, that particular week. But it's mainly about humor. It's a humor comic like all the time, but I'll talk about different
Got
subjects,
it.
not just one specific subject. And you can find that on TikTok, at uh, ASMR puns with a Z. I almost said Zed. I
Is
almost
Zed?
said Zed.
You're gonna say
Uh,
Zed, weren't you?
okay,
Say Zed.
so
Feel
yeah,
free. This is a
TikTok
safe place.
.com at ASMR puns with a Z. Here on Instagram, same thing, ASMR puns with a Z.
Okay.
Um,
What is ASMR? I
yeah,
know puns. I know
yep.
puns is like that's the part I get. But is it
No,
as Mr. Puns or
ASMR
something?
is a phenomenon that people experience where they're triggered by certain sounds, and whatever they're triggered by sends the tingly
Oh
feeling
shit.
on top of your head and down your spine. Uh, exactly.
Oh yeah, or
And we're
like
all
the goose
triggered by
pimples on your
different
arms or
sounds or
something.
sights. There's visual ASMR too. But it
Mm.
stands for autonomous sensory
Yeah.
meridian response. And there's a whole community
Okay.
on YouTube of like thousands of ASMR artists, and I'm just one of the newest ones, just starting out. So
Hmm.
yeah, but you won't find the comic on that YouTube channel, just on Instagram, TikTok.
I was
Yeah,
asking
so I
how
started
your worlds
watching
merge.
ASMR like years ago to help with sleep problems, and it can also help with depression and anxiety, um, and help you fall asleep as well. So I've always been into that, and I've always been into like creating and like doing stuff with video. So I assumed I would eventually start my own channel at some point. I just kept on putting it off, and then the puns um,
Yeah.
is just the other side of it, where I just love jokes, telling jokes. I'm a comedian, although we haven't been performing in our town
Yeah.
um, that much since February because everything's shut down. Uh, so bars
Yeah.
are all
Same.
closed except for the patios. But and yeah, I always would tweet in jokes to Jay's show um, on Twitter all the time with you guys. And I would always like to
Hmm.
do the ones that weren't really knowledgeable that much in sports, because I'm not, but are the ones that are like are disturbers, the ones that make people laugh just for the
Yeah.
fun of it. So it's always been a part of my life, comedy and
Yeah.
humor. So I mix the two together because
Yeah.
the ASMR thing is pretty interesting, and it helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. I
But you're also a
was
musician,
in a
correct?
band. I was in five actually, for the over the course of 15 years, and but I
Yeah.
just play like on my own now. Like I have some pedals and a guitar, and I just screw around with that. I've written some stuff that I
Yeah.
hopefully want to record at a studio here in where I live. Um, but yeah,
Wait, where do you live? Because I live all the way in the southernmost part of the United States in Miami, Florida. I'm about as
yeah.
far away from Canada as you can get. For someone like me, explain where you live, because
Well, I
I'm not
live
even sure.
in London, Ontario, which is just smack dab between
Okay.
Windsor and Toronto. So if you're going west,
Okay.
I guess diagonally towards Los Angeles, um, you would be
Yeah.
going Toronto to Windsor, and London is halfway point to Windsor.
Yeah.
So nice.
What is that, like 2 hours or an hour and a half to
Yeah,
Toronto?
it's about 2 hours
Like,
each
what's the
way.
distance
Like
between?
Windsor to
Okay.
London is 2 hours. London to Toronto is 2 hours. It's fairly smack dab in the middle. I also a couple years ago produced an audio book that talks about everything that you have to sacrifice and risk to even have a shot at having a career in music. And what I did was I interviewed a bunch of like
Yeah.
prominent Canadian rock musicians to get their points of view on like what they had to do. So I got
Uh-huh.
the singer from Finger 11. I got Alan Cross, who's a great
Okay.
Canadian music journalist. Um, I got the
Okay.
lead singer of the Arkells, Monster Truck, a Colin Lane Crush, Great Big Sea,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to
Damn.
provide all
Wow.
their input on what they had to go through in their experiences, just to show it's sort of like an, a non motivational video in a way.
I was gonna ask a follow up. Like, what was their? Cause I had this couple things stored. Like, oh well, I mean, I know what it takes, and
Yeah,
I don't want to get into it. But
they did.
did they
It
have
was
shared
amazing to have, and
experiences?
it wasn't really that surprising, but it was amazing.
It was like, hey, just be born
No,
rich, and you'll be a
not
like a
exactly.
nice. No.
It's not as like basic. I think
Okay.
it was a member of Lamb of God said once, like it's like an hour and a half out of your day is performing. The other 22 and a half or 23 and a half that are left is just driving
Yeah.
around, trying to get food, trying to like get it to the next city, sleeping on friends' floors. When you
Yeah.
first start out, it just gets into they speak about the
Yeah.
nitty gritty of this is a really cool job. We're not going to lie, and if that's what you want to do, then good, great, go for it. But here are all the things that you're going to have to face if you want to even have a shot at doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an non-motivational uh, video, but it's still encouraging because it's like, hey, if that's what you're good at and that's what you want to do, great. Let's consider these things and have at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find that for only $1 at swoaudio.bandcamp.com.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Bandcamp. Okay. Okay. Good. Um, the last time I had really corresponded with you before linking back up with you on Instagram was when I had a blog
That
and
is
you had
correct.
just written a
Yes.
book. Let's talk about your book a little bit. What have you written another one? Are you still
No,
writing
the
novels
audiobook was
or
the last thing that I wrote.
okay, so you did an
Yes,
audio so
yeah,
and you
yeah, I
did your
did.
own audio for
I
that as well, right?
narrated it and added the interviews I had with
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And yeah, So that was the last thing I wrote because I had to write it out first.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was fiction. That was fiction. That's not. That wasn't like doing like music
Yeah, the one
interviews or
the
anything.
one
Musician
before was
interviews.
fiction called
That was
Happy
a that was a
Trails,
fiction.
um, and that was about 2 years
Yes.
before I did the next project. So, uh, yeah, it. I only printed like 50 copies just as like a test run, and I got rid of them all. Um,
Hmm.
that I know that there's copies all
Cool.
across the continent and copies over in the UK because people just took them with them, or I gave them as gifts and
Wow.
they took them. But yeah, no, it's called Happy Trails. It's sort of
Oh, that's cool.
it's interesting that in 2015 I wrote a book that sort of is set kind of in a
Yeah.
world like what's going on right now. Although in my book, you don't really
Hmm.
get into specifics as to why everything fell apart. There was no virus or anything, but just sort of like socially, it was sort of right on the money as to what's going on right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, just people like angry with each other.
That's a great point. Yeah. Because it was almost, it was like a complacent
Yeah,
post-apocalyptic like setting, like world. It's like
yeah,
shit's fucked
yeah,
up, but it's
whatever.
just like, oh, what are we gonna do? We're not like taking up arms, but we're just like, we just let's just like
Yeah, yeah,
find something
yeah.
better,
I often refer to it as
And that's kind of
pre-apocalyptic. Um, yeah, but yeah,
I
but
like that.
after that I did the audiobook, and since then I've I had gotten married. I have two children. Um, one
Hmm.
just turned 7 actually, and you know, dealing with some personal issues, mental health issues. But yeah, so I write every once in a while, but nothing substantial. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got two kids myself
nice,
now.
nice man.
Yeah. So
Yes,
your oldest is
7
7,
and
and your
4, 7
youngest
and 4.
is 7 and 4. Okay, so we have my wife and I. We have a
Mm-hmm.
5, soon to be 6 year old, at the end of this month. So soon to be six
Okay,
and soon to be
those are
3. So
yeah,
like a two and a
those are
half, like
good
a two and a
ages,
half year old. No.
and it's a good
Oh yeah,
age
yeah,
gap
for
between the
sure.
two. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's still sort of a law and order between the two, but they're
Right.
close enough to where they can be friends if they have to be, which is great for them right now because the two of them, that's all they see are just each other right now
Mm-hmm.
and have been since like March. So they get along and that's great. But if like the other one has to put her foot down, she can. If the other one wants to get snotty, like she can. It's
Yeah.
it's fine. It's it's how siblings are. It's two girls. Now you
The
have two
4-year-old
girls
is a
also, or
boy,
is it
so
a
I have
girl and
a yeah, boy and a girl.
so a boy and a girl,
Yep.
girl and a boy rather?
They're
Yeah.
both trouble, but they're funny.
Cool, man. It's it's true. I feel like my oldest is a little bit of an artist because she's very I don't know, stubborn, and she's also very like imaginative, um, and just like just does her own thing. Like does no almost, I don't want to say no respect for authority, but like
Mm-hmm.
just wants to do what she wants to do. Does that
It
does
does,
that
yeah.
sound
My
familiar?
oldest,
It's like
she
you
has
know,
a very sharp wit. She got a very good sense of humor,
mm,
and but she also has an attitude though, where you're just like, did you just honestly say that right now?
uh,
It's and my son is just
yeah,
off on his own, likes to play with Legos, and he wants to build stuff all the time. So there's quite a difference between the two. But yeah, when they start getting wisecracky and like
yeah,
you're trying to tell them about your day, and then they cut you off because it
yeah,
sounds boring. It's just like, oh really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The other day she
Mm-hmm.
said, "Mommy, Daddy's story is boring." And I was like, "I wasn't even telling a story. I'm just trying to talk to mom. You're
Yeah,
like you're crushing the
I was
soul here."
driving my daughter to school
Ugh.
a couple years ago, and I'm like, "Oh, it looks like it's gonna be a nice day, sweetie, like at recess and stuff." And she sighed and I looked out the window and it's like, let's just enjoy the ride. I'm just like, okay.
Wow.
It's like, F you then. I'll just keep
Wow.
driving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not gonna talk to you
Yeah,
anymore.
they're fun. They're fun ages because it's like they're little people before their personality gets
Yeah.
grounded down
Yeah.
by being a grown up.
I'm trying to keep that for as long as
Yeah.
possible. They don't need to be grown up like the mom and daddy right away. They have time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, man.
But so how you keeping busy?
Well,
Like Canada's not opened up yet, is it? You were talking about bars still being
bars can
closed.
be open, but you have to wear, a mask, um, and it can only be
Yeah.
patio seating, so it's outside, or you can do takeout or
Right.
door like curbside pickup. Uh, and beaches
Okay.
are open because we're in Ontario, because every province is responsible for their own healthcare system. So in Ontario, our system, um, they got out of quarantine in 3 stages. The first stage, these things are open,
Hmm.
but here's what you have to do. And then phase two is like these things are
Yeah.
open. You can move around a little bit more. You can be around as more people than you are allowed to, but you still have to do this, this, and this. And that's where we are right now. Is in phase two. So like parks are open, but
Okay.
the climbers that kids play on are closed. Beaches are open.
Hmm.
Restaurants and bars, like if they have a patio, is open. Sporting events, outdoors, like, and then you have to practice social distancing.
Hmm.
Distancing. So, but yeah, we're opening up slowly.
Yeah. It's I live in Florida and it's literally the worst state in the US and we're just cluster fucked everything and it's great. It's really sensational. No, people don't like to wear masks, people don't like to socially distant. They want to go to bars, they want to go to
Mm.
Miami Beach is famous for their club scene. So people have been going to clubs and yeah. It's basically a how not to survive a pandemic is what Florida's doing. Fascinating how ridiculous
Florida,
our leaders
Florida
are.
seems like it's that kind of state that's just like, I'm gonna do what I want, and all the other states are like, yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
no one's gonna stop you. You go right
yeah,
ahead, Florida.
yeah, and yeah, and what's the saying? It's really hard to win an argument with the smart person, but it's impossible to win an argument with the stupid
Mm-hmm.
person. You familiar with that? I think Bill Murray said it or something like that. Basically, that's Florida. Florida is a stupid person you can't win an argument with ever because too they're too resistant to
Yeah.
facts and to doing the right thing. And
I
that's
remember.
what Florida is.
Do you remember Vine?
Yes, the
So
video
there
app,
was
yeah.
I actually made a Vine compilation on my YouTube channel. That was great. Just going through all the old ones, but I digress. A guy from Canada who used to be on Vine is now on TikTok. His name's Kopke, like
Okay.
Kopke, 63, I think. Kopke 63.
Mhm.
Um, and he just continues like his exaggerated Canadian character on TikTok now. But what he's been doing lately is dumb laws in America. So he did some on Florida, and he's like there is literally nothing that is illegal to do here. And he's just like they. It's like you can do anything in Florida.
Yeah, it's pretty much true. You can buy guns, you could sell drugs, you can marry your sister. It's all good
Mm-hmm.
down in Florida. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful land with beautiful people.
Yeah.
They're just stupid.
If you look at it
That's the
like
only problem.
philosophically, you have the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
On one side, you have a
Yeah.
crazy liberal state, and then you go across the Gulf to Texas, and you have a very crazy conservative state. So it's like the two crazies are located down there, but they're very
Yeah.
different from one another.
Oh, I wouldn't
Really?
describe Florida
I
as
mean,
liberal at
just
all.
there would be more like
Mm.
social advancement and like
No.
LGBTQ rights and uh, in Florida, and
You would
then
think. You would
maybe in
think.
southern Florida when when you get up
Only
to
in
like
only in southern
the
Florida
top,
because
I would
me,
think
yeah,
you start to see that fade into
yeah.
conservatism a little bit. But
It's but even in
really,
Miami, there's a lot of conservatives. You get the Cuban migrants
mm-hmm.
that that came over, and they're essentially the only or some of the only Latinos that have immigrated to the United States that are conservative for the most part. So there's a large and then Miami, which is basically almost all Cuban or Cuban American. It's a lot of conservatives are there, but then they're not the Cubans aren't the only people there. So you do have a lot of liberals, but it is the most liberal place in the state of Florida, but it's by no means
Hmm.
liberal. It's by no means progressive. It's
Hmm.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's not what I
Yeah,
had thought.
but the real reason Florida no, it's not like Los Angeles. It's not like California or New York by any means. Like places that are much more systematically progressive and liberal for generations and have been for decades. But Miami and Florida, it's it
Hmm.
seems to switch every 2 or 3 years. Like it ebbs and flows. It's not really like a singular. It doesn't have a singular
Yeah.
focus. Strangely. But that's because there's always people coming from everywhere to go to Miami. There's an influx of Europeans, or there's an influx of Cubans, there's an influx of South Americans, Central Americans, yeah, Caribbean, like or
Yeah.
people from the Caribbean. It just ebbs and there's sort of ebbs in there. There's always an influx. Like in the '80s, it was Cubans, then it was Nicaraguans, then it was in like the early '90s, it was like Europeans because
Right.
like they came in for the club culture. So they came in, they want to party, but then they left. So now there's no more Europeans here. A few Germans here and there, maybe
Hey,
some cats
Brad's
from the
in. Hey, Brad,
UK
what's up?
still hang out. Not
Uh,
talking to Brad. um, and then but then after the Europeans sort of left, and you just got like stuck with the people who are still there, and they maybe slowly but sure it's like Nicaraguan, Guatemalan, like Central Americans. They kind of came in, and now people are trying to leave Florida. I mean, I came back to Florida, but I think for the most part, people try to leave it because people I went
mhm.
to school with, people I grew up with, that I like really like being with, like high school, college, like and so on and so forth. They left Miami like I did. Like when I went to California, they're like they had either left just before I did or they had
Right.
left just after I did. So like almost like all the cool people who I thought were cool
They
were gone.
just took off.
Yeah, they're just like place is too much for me. And even like my family members aside from my parents, no one else. My brother, my two sisters, they all left Florida, and I was like the youngest, and I was the last one to leave, and that's what I did. But I came back. None of them came back.
Yeah, man.
But anyway, Florida's a weird place.
Yeah, it
Canada,
just depends
from
on
what
where
I
you
hear,
go,
is a
like it
weird
is in the
place.
States, I would imagine. But
But
or there tends to
correct,
be like
correct.
a a bad side of each of our cities. Like oh, like that's the bad side of Toronto, or like that's the bad side of
Mm.
London, or like East Vancouver, where all the drugs are and
Yeah,
prostitutes are. Like so, East Van is like the bad side of Vancouver. But every place has its bad
yeah.
stuff.
The seedy
Yeah,
side.
but yeah, everybody
Yeah,
around here just wants to go to Toronto. That's where everything happens, and then but I'm not a big fan of Toronto myself. It's busy. I'd never drive there. I would never drive in Toronto. Um, no, it's
oh
chaos
no,
in Toronto.
is it just
It's always under construction,
yeah,
and parking's insane. I guess that makes sense. But if ever I have
yeah,
to go to Toronto
I
for like
believe
a
it.
concert or a hockey game or a baseball game, um, I'll just take the bus or the train. Just like it's not worth it.
Yeah, but at least
But
you have that. At least you have that option. Like here in the States, like the train system's so lousy. Like you don't have any choice but to
mm,
take your car anywhere. It's either you take your car or you take a plane, and those are your
yeah,
two options. Like even public transit, and even in the aside from aside from like New York and the subway system, I don't think any metropolitan area in the States, any metropolitan city has anything close to a good or useful public transit system like subway or elevated
well,
train
I might
or
disagree with
anything.
you there because
Just
I've been to Chicago, I've been to Boston, I've been to Philadelphia,
yeah,
and they had some pretty good transit systems. Like
yeah,
Chicago in the city, you have the loop, um, and that was good above ground.
yeah.
And then you go to Boston and Philly, and they all have like underground stuff. And
Right, but my point being is that
right,
you're like an hour outside of
yes,
Toronto and you can take a train there. The cities you mentioned, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, they're great within the very small confines of that city. But
oh,
if you
okay,
have
I
to
see.
sprawl out like most of us do, then it becomes a nightmare. Then you're stuck like on a freeway that looks like a parking lot, which is what LA
Mm-hmm.
was famous for. I spent 12 hours a day sitting sitting in a 6-lane freeway, parked my ambulance. That's what I did for 6 years when I lived in California. Was driving ambulance 12 hours a day. It took an hour to drive like 10 miles or like 8 miles or something like that. It took an hour and a half to go like 20 miles.
That's
Like
insane.
it was and you just sit there. You go like, yeah, you go there. You get in the traffic lane. You get in the what is it, like the 5 or the 405 or the 110, like all these famous LA freeways, and you just sit in traffic for the whole day, just burning up diesel gas, burning up diesel gas that your employer paid
Yeah.
for. But whatever. Surely it
No.
wasn't any good for the environment. Not that LA was too concerned about that. But the funny thing is, uh, I always saw these pictures of how nature is healing or the earth is
Oh yeah,
healing during
like
the pandemic times. And one of the pictures was like of East LA looking over downtown Los Angeles, and it was like the clearest, bluest sky over like a picturesque like lake, which is in Echo. It was happens to be in Echo Park. I knew where the lake was, and I was like, oh my god, I've never seen it like that. It was like I was like, people just must not be driving to have like zero smog in the atmosphere
yeah, I
like
remember
over like
seeing stuff like
downtown.
that too.
I was like,
And it doesn't really matter like what
yeah,
your opinion on it is or not. We all have good points that need to be addressed. But like the places that cleared up the most, like satellite imagery showed that the cleanest improvement when everything shut down was above
hmm,
India and China. And it's like it sort of goes to show it's like this
yeah,
is what everybody is
most
saying.
populous, yeah, the most populous
So this is what
areas,
everybody's saying. If that's not a
yeah,
case study right there, I don't know what is. Like the two biggest producers of pollution
yeah,
stopped, and look how much
hmm,
things improved. It's like I feel sometimes that not enough attention is
yeah.
placed on those two countries, but that's a whole nother story. I think the
Go ahead.
planet's going to find a way to take us out before we take it out. So
It's funny you bring up like you're referring to the human race, like right, like as far as the planet goes, a species, which the human race is. They say on average, species on Earth average about a million
mm-hmm.
years, like on average, whether it's a mammal or an amphibian, insect, what have you. Doesn't matter, bird, flying or in underwater. These species last about a million years. No way is a human species going to last a million years. The humans are going to get wiped out, or they're just basically going to shoot themselves in the foot and wipe themselves out long before they reach a million years. I think we're only at like 200,000 right now, or 300,000.
Yeah,
I don't even
I
think we're
think I
halfway
think it's
there, are
because
we?
we were given the gift
I don't
and
know
the
how long. I don't
cursed
know how old the human race is.
of arrogance.
Yeah,
Like
probably.
we're the only species that has arrogance. So it's like, oh, beat
Yeah,
that 1 million. I'm just like, we can get it down to like
yeah.
600,000.
I walk on 2 feet and I got a big ass head. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on top of the food chain. That's. I had a funny bit about being on top of the food chain, like, cause my daughter, she's 5 turning 6, and she's learning about animals, and, like, so she gets worried about things like
Uh,
crocodiles and sharks and bears and lions and tigers, and, like, if she's worried, like, oh, if I go in the ocean, I'm gonna get eaten by a shark, and I'm like, well, I mean, or like I'm gonna get eaten by a crocodile, or like, honey, we're humans, we're on top of the food chain. There's not an animal on earth that eats humans or that preys on human. If they will attack a human, they have been known to eat humans if given the opportunity,
that
but
hunts
there's not
us,
an
yeah.
animal on this planet that is out that's hunting humans. Like we hunt cows, or how, like, we hunt pigs. We don't technically hunt them, but we just fucking eat them.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, yeah, you don't have to worry about it, honey. You're on top of the food chain. Just let's finish your story, and then you can go to bed.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that seemed to work on her. She's like, okay. She's like,
Oh,
yes,
I
they're
get
big
it.
and scary. They have big teeth, but you don't have to worry about them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and also
You got to say it like that when you're a dad
it
sometimes.
also helps too if you can explain to them that which animals are they talking about that live nowhere near them, to sort of take that out of the equation. Because and it's
Yeah,
kind of funny and crazy
yeah.
like how different places around the world have to deal with different animals. Because I was talking to a friend I met through TikTok who lives in Australia, and I made a pun about like
Hmm.
everything in that country is trying to kill you, and she's like, yeah, they pretty much are. But I said in Canada, we only have to worry about like only three spiders that can kill you. But in Australia, like a spider will deliver you your mail.
Yeah,
Like it's just crazy. Like what you have to, and then out in the mountains, you have
it,
to worry about bears,
yeah.
and like down where you are, you have to worry about crocs and snakes and stuff. So it's just
Hmm.
weird how different people have to learn about
Yeah,
different threats.
yeah. That's a great point, because we're dealing with that right now. Because we left Florida for the holiday to come to North Carolina, and we don't have to worry about alligators and crocodiles and sharks here in North Carolina like we would in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have to worry about bears. Like,
Right.
tomorrow's trash day, and I can't put out the trash until I wake up in the morning. So hopefully I wake up before the trash guys come by. Otherwise, they're gonna have to sit with trash in my yard for another 2 or 3 days. Because if I put it out tonight, the food will get eaten by bears. Yeah,
Oh, for sure.
are you familiar
I've
with
heard
something like
of
that?
like bears, like cottage country,
Yeah,
like the Muskokas, and if you get up to like Algonquin Park and up to Churchill,
yeah,
even like way up to like the Hudson Bay, um, people have to
yeah,
have like cages that they put their garbage cans in, so that animals like bears can't get to them. But
yeah,
in where I live specifically,
yeah. That's where
where
my
I live
garbage is right now.
specifically, um,
Yeah.
the problem is like raccoons. So we put lids on our
Oh,
garbage
yeah,
cans too,
yeah,
so that they
yeah.
can't just have at it.
How much father stuff do you put in your comedy and your material? Like, you do like daddy humor, or like jokes about
Yeah,
being a dad?
not so much as I used to, but it's in there. Like I said, we
Okay.
haven't really been performing or writing. At least I know I haven't been, but I throw a bunch of being a father jokes in there, um, or just being older in
Yeah.
general. Um, but most of the jokes I do now are I just throw up on TikTok. It's a great way to keep sharp, get some practice in, so you don't get stale. But yeah, no,
Right. Right.
I got a lot of material
Right.
out of the experiences of being a father. Like one example I can give you is I had a joke where I was talking about it's good to get sick because then you'll get the antibodies and your body can learn how to not get sick again by that germ. you need to get
Hmm.
dirty every once in a
Yeah.
while so you get the good bacteria and build up a resistance. And I'm like, you don't have to get any
Yeah.
immunizations. All you have to do is just get a kid because they collect all sorts of germs. So we were in Walmart and she was just a baby, like maybe just over a year. And I was showing her all the holiday movies that I enjoyed as a kid. I'm like, oh, there's the Muppet Christmas Carol. I'm like, there's Frosty and there's Rudolph. Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
just going through the racks or something.
she was
Yeah.
just like looking at the characters and just so fascinated by them. And so she looked so cute, just excited about all the characters that I went to kiss her cheek. And right as I got
Hmm.
near her cheek, she turned her face and her runny nose just went right in my mouth. So I was like, I didn't need to get an immunization or a shot. All I had to do is just get a kid, and I'm immune to
Yeah.
most things.
Yeah. And a straw from your mouth directly to her nostrils, just so you could slurp up those we call them
Mocos,
mocos in my
mocoso.
house, mocoso. Yeah, but I don't.
Yeah, like
I guess it's
mucus,
Spanish for boogers,
mucus. Oh,
but I don't know.
mucoso.
Mucus, mucoso,
That's cool.
mucus.
Yeah.
Correct. I had like my first like type 5. Do you have like a type 5 and a type 10, or like a solid 10, or do you're familiar
No.
with these
Do
terms?
do explain. No, they don't sound familiar.
No.
Do explain.
Okay. I will. I will. I just so started when I first started doing comedy, stand up, doing I did dozens and dozens and dozens of open mics. And then I eventually I started to repeat some of the jokes from open mics, and I started building a set. And my first set was, like when you get featured, they want you to like, hey, I need you to do like a type 5.
Oh, okay.
I need
Yes,
you to give me
I know what you were
solid
talking
10
about. Yeah.
minutes or something
I
like that. Yeah, so there's one guy out of North Miami who liked to book me for Dade County shows and Broward County shows. Dade County is where Miami is. Broward County is where Fort Lauderdale is, about an hour and a half apart. So depending on depending on the week, if it was a weekday show, it was Miami. If it was a weekend show, it was Fort Lauderdale.
mm,
That's just how this guy operated. But if I was doing a weekday show for Miami, I had to give him a type 5. If I was going to do a weekend show in Fort Lauderdale, I had to give him a solid 10. But when I gave him a solid 10, he would feature me and I'd be at the top of the bill. So I thought that was cool. But my first type 5 was basically solid 4.5 minutes of me just bitching about my kids. And that's what it was. It was just like being frustrated with my then 2-year old / 3-year old, who was at that time was an only child. And I really haven't really incorporated my youngest one into my new material yet. Basically, it's my oldest still as like a 2 or 3-year old. So I probably should update my material. But it's like once you get a tight 5 and you're solid, you don't really have to deviate from it too much. It's when the guy starts asking for a solid 10, you're like, hey, I need to go do some open mics and I need to work on some material. And I don't know how I'm going to fit in my tight 5 with the solid 10. I got to sort of mix and match topics and stuff like
yeah,
that.
I
But it's all,
totally know what you mean
it's
because
fun.
like I would do open mics and I never really wanted to do the same jokes each time. Um, and so what I would do is every time
Yeah. Yeah.
I would get a type 5, I would just compile those ones that went well. And so eventually I got
Hmm.
to like a solid 15 minutes, which I did once or twice, but it was just,
Awesome.
3 really good 5-minute sets, just one after another. And I just remember the order, and it does take a while though because you have to hash out the jokes, and
Yeah.
so I like to build my sets
Yeah.
based on themes as well. So it's easier to flow into from one joke to another. Like all
Right.
these jokes
Right.
have this in common, so I'll group all those together. And yeah, it does take a lot of
Yeah.
work, but it's at the
Yeah.
same time it's quite easy to build a night. Sorry, a tight 10 or a tight 15 minutes. It doesn't happen
Sorry.
too long.
Type 5,
So
solid 10. I miss doing stand up, dude.
what I think,
Yeah, but about your point, like when you do open mics, it's like they're like, "Hey, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to give you 4 minutes," and you're like, "Okay," and you've seen like the last 3 or 4 people go, and it's the same people you've seen
right,
from the week before and from 2 weeks before, and you like really close friends. You become like really close and really tight with these people. Like you see them every week, twice a week, 3 times a week, and you're like, I don't want to keep telling them the same jokes. Like I never really did want to do that. So it's weird how you sort of want to work the crowd when it's an open mic and you're doing sort of fresh jokes for other friends of yours or other comedians, as opposed to like, hey, you have people sitting down for dinner and a drink, and you like you got your like stuff, you got your stuff like all like solid and fresh. It's just I miss the challenge of making other comedians laugh. You know, like you're gonna want to say something to them that they've never heard before because they've heard your type 5 before, they've heard your solid 10 minutes before, they've heard you work on your 15 minutes, they know all that stuff inside and out. There's at least like a dozen people here, oh not here in Miami but down in Miami, that I could probably do their type 5 form, you know, because you know I've seen them so often and I appreciate it.
I totally
So
know what you
much.
mean. Um,
So
that's sort of why I like always doing new material each time I go up, because it forces you to always
mhm.
try to come up with new material. Um, but like I was talking about
Mhm.
before you know it, you have like 15-20 minutes of material because you each week you knew that you had to have like 10 or 15 new jokes ready to go. Um,
Yeah.
I know what you mean about trying to impress uh, the other comics because that sort of means more than making the audience laugh. Like obviously that's a huge part of it, but when you can make your fellow comedians
Yeah.
and your friends and your peers laugh and just say that was awesome. And I know what you mean about
Uh-huh.
being able to basically recite verbatim people's sets because in the town I live
Yeah.
in, there's this one comedian. I won't mention his name, but he has a particular condition, um, and his jokes
Okay.
center around that condition. Uh, and he's been
Got it.
doing those
Right.
jokes for about 10 years. So, and when I first started doing comedy, it was like in 2014. Uh, and then I took a break because like we had our kids and we were moving around a lot. My wife, then wife, I'm separated now. Um, she was in school, so I was away from it. And when I got back after we split up, um,
Mhm.
he was just doing the exact same stuff, exact same jokes. And I'm just like, wow, really? Like, that must be boring. I would find
Yeah.
that excruciatingly boring
Yeah.
because I like to come up with new jokes just to
Yeah.
make myself laugh and know that I can.
I don't know, I get a little worried about walking out of the shallow part of the water, you know, like the set jokes, the known jokes, those are so comfortable, and I could stay in the shallow end of the pool, you know, and I could just like stay there. I mean, but to be a successful comedian is you have to challenge yourself, and so you like every once in a while you got to take a swim to the deep end, and you got to try out, you got to see if these jokes swim or not, you know, and you got to test them out,
Right.
see what they're gonna do. That's the part I miss. I remember when I first moved down to Miami, I started doing open mics, and I was doing two or three a week, and I was working on 3 or 4 minutes every week of new stuff, and just trying to like come up, and that really like forced me to like come up and like be imaginative, and I missed that because once I got my like my set sort of style and my voice, there's so much of that stuff I just threw away, and I don't don't I don't challenge myself as much anymore. But it's I don't know. It's great being in a comedian community, and I had said this in a previous It's Lit before. Is that some of the best times I've had doing comedy shows is yeah, it's great to be on stage, and it's great when like the audience laughs or when you get a high five or someone buys you a drink. You know, like I remember, you know, you come off stage and you have friends who've seen you before, and they're like, you really killed it that time. You get a high five, but the conversations you actually have like in the back of the room or the conversations you have like outside like when you either getting ready or you just got off like those sort of like brainstorming sessions or just like or if you're just like shooting the dozens with some of your friends like
Oh, for sure.
those are the best times
Yeah,
and like
like
those are the
before the
things that I
crowd gets there,
miss.
before the show starts, and people are just like hanging around, grabbing their drinks, and then they're there until way late after the people have
Hmm.
gone. And in my town, a
Yeah,
lot of the comedians are actually roommates with each other, and they some of them even have
no
podcasts
kidding.
together. Um, and so
Yeah.
being, yeah, I agree with what you say about being in a comedian community is really sweet and fun and awesome because you just shoot shit with everybody and just try
Yeah.
to make each other laugh. Not to sort of be,
Yeah.
pretentious or conceited or anything like that, but you try to make each other laugh just because you want to make each other laugh.
Oh, but there's a lot
Ego
of
and stuff.
conceitedness and there's a lot of there's a lot of pretension. There's a lot of that. But it goes, goes with the territory and you can even, scoff at that and make light of that. Um, I have three friends of mine, local Miami comedians, and a year ago they did something really cool and they've been doing it pretty steadily. Well, I should
Mm-hmm.
tell you, they bought a school bus and they're going to make what's called a schoolie, and what that is they redesign they rip out the insides of a school bus, they redesign it, and they basically make it like a mobile home or like an RV, and it's like RV style
Mm-hmm.
living, so it's for the road. So they convert a school bus into basically a house on wheels, and the idea behind it was that they were going to make a YouTube channel, which they did. They were going to make like social media, like Twitter and Instagram, which they did. Do a podcast related to it, which they did. The only thing they haven't done yet is get it on the road. It drives. It's an operating school bus. It's been checked out by mechanic. It's been
Hmm.
driven up and down Florida. I've seen it in person. It's just not finished yet. Their goal is to take it on the road, and they chase. They call it like I think the term is chasing 68, something like that, where you chase like you go to you're chasing perfect weather. So 68 degrees, like room temperatures, like the perfect weather, like moderate, very very comfortable. So it's like not
Right.
snow and it's not hot. It's not raining. You're basically chasing perfect weather. So you kind of go up and down the continental United States. So they're basically they want to do this and they're going to do shows. There's three of them, and they're going to take turns driving. And they're going to live in their schoolie, and they're going to videotape it, and they're going to like do something with it. So it's crazy. They've done this they had the idea, and it didn't take them very long after the idea was conceived to go get a school bus. Like I think it only took them a couple weeks, and they're still like working on this plan. And it's pretty cool to see. They've extended me an invitation to get on their bus and go on the road with them. But I mean, I'm like, you guys aren't even on the road yet. Come on, you're putting like the cart way before the horse with this.
Yeah, it does sound like a really sweet
But
idea, though.
it's cool. Like it's like they but the three of them didn't go to school together. They didn't grow up together. They met doing stand-up shows, doing open mics, like in and around Miami, and they just became like super tight. They don't live together. They're not like roommates. I'm actually looking really forward to that because all three of them are really really sharp. They're like three of the funniest guys down in Miami. So it's something to keep around. They're called Scheme Supreme. So, but everyone in Miami, all the locals, all the comics know them. They're good guys. I only got 3 minutes left. On Instagram, it cuts you off at 59 minutes and 59
Yeah,
seconds.
man.
So we might, if I hadn't noticed it, it was gonna cut us off, and it's happened to me like two or three
Cool, man.
times already. So I'm like now keeping my eye on it. It's like
I
it
guess I'll
says
just
10:57
let
on
you
my phone right
know
now.
again where you can find me and all my stuff. So
Please do.
ASMR
Yes, please
Puns
do.
is on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
All the same username, ASMR Puns with a Z.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find all across those platforms my comic strip, music that I do, skits that I do, my thoughts on stuff. Um, cool things to check out on my YouTube right now are um, a Canadian joke video of ASMR. I did a research experiment
Cool.
on how much TikTok is and some of the crap that they pull. So I just released my findings video on
Okay.
that. And last week I did a parody
Okay.
of the Eye of the Tiger, but instead of tiger, it's the Eye of the Karen, and so it's basically
Uh,
about Karens to the style of Eye of the Tiger.
the Karens, yeah. K
Yeah, man.
K
So
words, yeah.
uh, yeah, that's right. And you can check out my
Very cool.
audiobook at swoaudio.bandcamp.com.
Awesome. Scott, it's been a pleasure. It was really, really cool catching up with you. I will be talking to you on your social media platforms, on your Instagram. I'll be checking out your TikTok.
Yeah, man.
And I'll be checking out your
Thanks for having
YouTube.
me.
Thanks again. Happy, well, I guess July 1st was Canada Day. So I'm going to wish you a happy
And
Canada
I
Day,
wish
a
you.
belated one.
Oh,
And then
sorry. Go
also
ahead.
wishing you, yeah. And then,
I
yeah,
was I
okay. And
say
then you
I
do
hope
say
you
what
had
you're
a
going to say.
great
That's probably better.
fourth weekend, and happy Independence Day to you guys as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that worked out. That worked out much better instead of me
Take
doing
care, man.
both.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Scott, have a good one. Take care, buddy.